I'm going to talk about short game today. If you talk about short game, there's so much really to talk about um, between putting, chipping, your bunker play, your wedge play. I'm going to go through some basic elements that I feel that everybody needs to know, and then field some questions. And we're going to do basics of putting and chipping. I think the pitch shots will come to a little later in case there are questions on that. But this little club over here, I think, gives everybody a lot of grief on the course because putting is really the main aspect in golf, or one aspect in golf that really gives you very, very small margin for error. You have an error margin of only 1 degree when you putt, otherwise you're going to miss the putt. So how do we make sure that we minimize that error? We've got to definitely have good fundamentals. Now, this putter face here, okay, you've got a huge space to hit the ball, but ideally there's a very, very small sweet spot that you want to try and hit all the time. And again, how you set up to the ball, how you swing the putter back and through can make a difference. There are also different kinds of putters that you can use from your regular blade putters, which are, I would say, a little less forgiving. And then we also have the bigger heads. Which are the putters. When you have an off-center hit, when there is an off-center hit, there is less twisting of the face. So for that, don't have too much time to practice. I would really, you can try to. So going into the basics right now, I want to talk about one of the key elements here, which is the setup. And how do you actually set up to a putt? Now, one of the key things about putting is actually being able to aim correctly.
Sorry to interrupt you a bit.
And what I mean by that is that
I think your voice and video both are breaking. If you can just check your internet connection once again.
Okay. Is it better now or is it the same?
It's the same as of now.
Okay, I guess the internet is a bit of an issue here. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, I can hear you better now.
Okay. So stop me if it's becoming too unstable or unclear.
Yeah, sure, I'll stop.
Yeah, and then I'll just make sure that I just take a break before the network comes back. The owners come there. Right, so going into the setup, guys, quick thing about the setup and also how you want your eyes over the ball. You have a lot of putters, a lot of players who buy putters off the shelf. That is the first, I think, big mistake that you can make even as a club golfer, because what you're going to do then is you're going to fashion your setup based on the putter that you have. And most often, I think the standard length of a putter is about 34 inches, when most people actually need 32 inches and less. And why that is because you need to get your eyes into the right position. And when I talk about the eyes, they need to be, or your neck needs to be more parallel to the ground, like this, to be able to get into a better position to actually see the line a little bit better. But because putters are so long, people tend to stand very, very upright. And now you can see here, my neck is on the right position. So what happens there is that my perception of where I'm aiming goes off. And I'm not able to aim the putter correctly. And the moment I misaim the putter, right, I'm going to have a problem. If I show you an example here, this is what we call an aim board. Okay, now you can see on a 10-foot putt, right? On a 10-foot putt, if I'm 1 degree off on my aim, either side, I will just about hit the edge of the cup. So I have to be under 1 degree of error when I aim the putter or when I hit the putt. if I go 1.5 degrees, I'm going to miss the hole altogether on a 10-foot putt. And if you look at a 5-foot putt, right, it's a little easier on a 5-foot putt, right? So I can make an error up to almost 1.5 to 2 degrees. But the thing is that most of your putts really are going to be in the 10 and 15 feet zone, right? And you can see on a 15-foot putt, right, or 1 degree, I'm completely missing the hole. Now, there are two elements to this. Okay, one is I need to be aimed correctly, and the second is my ball needs to start on the correct line. So I could have basically got a good read on the putt, which is, let's say, left edge, and I've aimed it exactly at the left edge of the hole. But whenever I hit the putt, I tend to start it either too far left of where I'm aiming or too far right of where I'm aiming. So the number one thing that you as club golfers and junior golfers need to really focus on is a good setup. And then a second drill I'm going to show you is basically how you want to start the ball correctly. So let's go into the setup. A good way to do it for you guys is to take your putter. But remember, guys, we've got to assume your putter is not the right one for you. So you should not hold the putter at the top of the grip just because you've got a certain length of putter. What you want to do is you want to bend over from the waist, let your hands hang naturally, right? Now, when your hands hang naturally and you feel your neck is as close to parallel as possible, it may not be completely parallel, as close to parallel as possible. You can use a mirror on either side if you want to. Allow your hands to hang naturally, bring them to a namaste position, right? And then slightly bend the elbows. Now, here's the key part. Keeping the hands in the same, bring the putter and hold it. That is actually the ideal position for you to hold the putter. But look at here. I'm holding it almost 2 inches below the top. So if I hold it on top, I'm pretty much not going to be in the best address position for myself. I need to get down further. So I'll repeat that. Bend over from the waist. Try to get your neck as close to parallel as possible. Hands together. Bend the elbows. Bring them in a little bit to be more relaxed. And once your elbows are in a comfortable position, then place the putter in your hands. That's very, very important. And if you get into a good setup position, and you'll notice that most of you guys will have to hold the putter longer. I've worked with a lot of club golfers, a lot of junior golfers, and I think a lot of you guys have putters that are a bit too long for you. And it's really good to have a club fitter check you out. If the club fitter knows enough about putting, I'm sure that he'll get you into a better putting position and then eventually cut your putter down. Now, for those of you who can't cut the putter down, what I would suggest is you put a piece of tape to mark where you should actually be holding the putter. And you will see how much more accurate you become, especially on the mid-range putts, when you actually address the putt better. Now, in terms of a basic drill and an exercise, I think a lot of players today, especially players who want to be good, when you come to putting, you must really look at investing in some good training aids, because it is those training aids that will stay with you in life and probably help you to get your putter moving back and through the correct way. So one thing I have here is the putting template. So this is basically a putting template that shows you how to take your putter back and through, making sure that your putter face stays square to the arc. Simple thing, but very, very effective. So how do we use this? And what we're going to do is we're going to place this on the ground. Like so. Okay, we have this here. I'm just going to align the camera a little better so you can see it better. And now, if you can see this line here, it's basically tracing how the putter should move. Now, I hope all of you know that the putter has to move on an arc, inside, square, inside. Now, how much it moves inside is dependent on your putting style, maybe the putter you're using. But I use a standard 12-degree arc because it's a great way just to train. And what you can do is put this on your green. There's a place for you to put the ball there. And all you got to do is trace that arc, trace the line with your. Once you get into a good setup position, guys, remember that's the key. All right, get into a good setup position and trace the arc going back and through. Okay, going back and through, and do this 20, 30 times, 50 times if you can before a round. It's a great way to warm up as well. And if you have time to just practice in the afternoons or the evenings, or you're a junior golfer and you're practicing a lot, I can't tell you how important this is. You can do it thousands of times every week. And it's going to train the putter to move correctly. Now, why that's important is if your putter moves correctly, you're more likely to make contact in the center of the putter. Now, that's another very, very important aspect of putting here. You must make contact in the center. And why is that? Why do we need to make contact in the center? Because when I hit an off-center putt, there is something called an energy loss, where you lose energy of the putter. So if you have, let's say, a 30-foot putt and you tend to miss-hit the putt and you don't even know it, you could end up leaving it 5-6 feet short every time. And what happens is a reaction to that. In a tournament, you've left 3 putts short, and suddenly the next one goes 8 feet by because you've left the last 3 putts short. That's a common reaction that we have. And the second thing is that when you hit off-center, the face tends to twist. If you hit on the heel, the face will twist inwards, the face will shut. If you hit on the toe, the face opens. So we've got to really train ourselves to hit the center of the putter. Now, this is one of the most difficult things to do in terms of training. And how do you really build awareness to know which part of the putter head you're really hitting? Of course, there are many training aids. You can actually put 2 pieces of tape like that. You have something called the double-sided tape. You can have 2 pieces of tape over there, and then you can hit the center of the putter. If you miss-hit the putt, obviously it's going to hit the tape and it's going to go in a different direction, and you'll feel it when it hits the tape. The other one is just to build your awareness. You can just hit putts purposely on the toe. You can hit putts purposely on the heel, and keep doing this until you get a feel of what a toe and a heel hit is, and then start trying to hit putts more off the center, and then you will know whether it's a center hit, a heel, or a toe hit. This is what we call errorful practice. It's a good way to learn. It's a great way to learn. One more thing that you want to do, again, talking about a training aid, you can use tees, is something like this. Okay? This is what we call a putting gauge. Now, what you do is you can just put this down on the green, right, in front of your ball, and make sure that the ball passes through this at all times. So what this does actually is this helps you to know if your ball is starting on the intended line or not. Now, there are many reasons why your ball may not start on the intended line. You could be aiming wrong to start with. But because these gates should not be more than 1.5 feet away from where your ball is, you can actually use these to train where your putter face is aiming as well. Now, this kind of training, unfortunately, is not done enough with club golfers and with juniors. I think you guys focus a bit too much on just hitting putts or having competitions, which is fine. It's good fun. But just putting this down in front of your putt, let's say a couple of feet in front, and going on and just hitting putts one after the other. Right, just trying to start the putter in between that. And this really builds in a good discipline, because you'll know if you're hitting the left one or the right one. You know if your putter's opening, you know if it's closing. You can figure things out like that. So you've got setup, you've got the right kind of path, and very importantly, what if I don't have these training aids? Well, you have options. Simplest option, I would say, is you get a pair of tour sticks, right? You put them down on the ground, right? This is the simplest exercise. But very importantly, guys, is one thing I want you guys to do and to watch is that the toe stick that's towards me is slightly more forward, because that's going to allow your putter to go back on a slight arc. Okay, you want the putter to go back on a slight arc. So put the ball in the middle of this here, and then what you can do is, in terms of a putting gait, you can actually use two tees. You can use two tees to get your start direction going better. So again, every putt that you hit, my suggestion is always, in practice, my suggestion will always be get into a proper setup position first. Get into this routine of setting up correctly. Once you're more athletic over the ball, you have a much better chance of hitting a better putt. Then, as you go forward, take the putter back and through, and keep that putter within those two lines. That makes sure that your putter face stays square, as square to the arc as possible through impact. Now, no doubt, if you're hitting a longer putt, the putter will arc more. If you're hitting a shorter putt, the putter will arc less. But nevertheless, there'll always be an arc. So be okay with that. Be okay with the fact that the putter is going to arc. No putter really ever goes straight back and through. And that's just physics, right? Because my fulcrum point is inside the putter head. The putter cannot physically go back straight. The only time a putter can go back straight is if the shaft is at 90 degrees. And nobody really has a shaft at 90 degrees. So always make sure that you're allowing the putter to arc, taking its natural arc back inside. But you can also practice this more deliberately using those training aids that I showed you. And if you don't have those, you can use the toe sticks. So that's pretty much it in terms of the basics of the putting. I don't want to cover too much more right now. I'd like you guys to talk more or ask me questions more on the issues I mentioned. And if you have any questions right now, I'll answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to just go into chipping.
So we have about 6-7 questions. So if you'd like to answer them. Okay.
Yeah, so why not? Why not?
Yeah. So first one is from Bivan Jain from Kolkata. How to control your putting speed?
Okay, so that's a good question. That's a very good question. And putting speed is a very important part of putting, especially on the longer putts. And one thing you must understand is that I think we have this notion, and we've been told that the putter needs to accelerate through impact, right? We'll have a lot of people telling us you must accelerate, otherwise it won't reach the hole. But that is completely untrue, guys. The best players in the world are actually decelerating through impact, right? And that's what a lot of pros do, is that they have an action that's actually coming into constant speed and then actually decelerating through impact. So this gives them a much better feel for distance. Now, how does one practice this? Very importantly, when you go onto a putting green and you have a 30-foot putt, right? We tend to control the distance with the speed at which we hit the putt, or the speed at which we move the putter. Let's put it that way. A better way to practice it would be to actually change the length of the swing. So if I have a 10-foot putt and I have a length of swing that goes, let's say, half a foot back. If I have a 10-foot putt, half foot back, and then if I suddenly go to a 20-foot putt, I just make it 1 foot or maybe even a foot and a half. What most people are not ready to do, and in my experience of teaching, is that they're not ready to take a longer backswing because they feel it'll go over. But what happens is that the more you train this, the more your brain realizes that you don't need to accelerate to hit that putt to the hole then. You just need to allow gravity and the weight of the putter to take it through. So you're more or less at constant speed through the putt rather than really accelerating. So work with the length of your backswing. And you'll start to find you are a much better rhythm. You're hitting it in that 3-foot zone much more often, and most importantly, you'll actually make better contact because you're not rushing. Because when you rush from the top of the backswing, there are a lot of forces that start acting on the putter. If I don't rush, there are no unnecessary forces that are acting on your putter. And this way you'll be able to judge your distances much better. So don't look at accelerating, look at constant speed, or maybe even if you have a slight feeling of deceleration is absolutely fine.
Okay, so next question from Mr. Setlur Venkataranga from Bangalore. What happens to those like me who use belly putters without anchoring upwards? I can't use a steady putter.
Yeah, so the belly putter that you use, and you're not anchoring it. I mean, obviously, depending on how you hold the putter, the essential mechanics, Venkat, are the same, right? The mechanics don't really change. So you shouldn't really worry about the mechanics of how you hold it, but what the mechanics you should worry about is how the putter is moving, right? Is it moving nicely um, in this arc? Is it staying? Is the putter face staying square at impact? So you must test that. So one of the best ways to test your putter face again is to put that gate down. So if you have, let's say, a left to right putt, or you have a right to left putt, or even a straight putt, the one thing you must test is your ability to start that ball on the intended line. And if you don't have a measure like a gate, you're never really going to know. You can hit 500 putts and you don't know how many of them actually started on line and didn't, because on a left to right putt, you could actually hit the ball into the hole in many different ways because you can alter your speed. So you don't really know whether you've actually been consistent on starting the ball where you wanted to start it. Because mostly on the sloping putts, we tend to compensate at the last minute. If I haven't aimed high enough on a left right putt, I will shut the face a little bit and then it'll start online and go into the hole. So the belly putter as such, hold it how you're comfortable, but watch how the putter is moving. Get into a good setup position, definitely. So if the belly putter is too long for you, again, you might have an issue with getting into a good setup position. So make sure that you are able to get into a good position with your neck more parallel. And that's going to help you even with your aim perception. Your aiming also will get a lot better.
Next question from one iPhone. How to plan your putting practice routines for tournaments and off-season both?
Okay, tournament season and off-season putting practice. That's a good question. Obviously, in tournament season, you're going to be doing more performance putting. Now, there's a big difference in practicing performance and practicing technique. So, what is technical practice? It's very simple. It's what I spoke about. You're checking your static parameters. You're checking how good your stroke is. You're working on your start direction. You're working on your contact point. And this should be more off-season practice. When you come in season, right, what are you going to focus on? Is you're going to focus on drills and exercises that help you perform better under pressure. Now, there are so many of these out there. But I'll talk about a few that I like. And one of the key things that I think where people go wrong is their body language and their anxiety. Putting, everyone who putts, especially in competition, whether it's a club competition or a national level tournament or an international level tournament, has this issue of anxiety when they hit the putt. So what happens is that the amount of the focus shifts from the process of hitting the putt to will the putt go in the hole or not, or will I hit it within 3 feet or not, or will I make a 3 putt or not, or will I make this putt or not, or will I miss it on the left. So we've got to basically bring our thought processes, and we've got to do exercises to bring our thought processes more into the process, and that is performance practice, right? The second aspect of performance practice is you must start to document, right? You must start to document so that you know what your success rate is, so you know how much more you're going to work on what aspect of the putt. So, Tuin, if I can just share my screen. Let me see if I can pull up something for him. Right, let me just see here. Is my screen visible?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Okay. I don't know why these annotations are happening. Okay, so let me just show you a simple Excel sheet that I use for my students. Okay, so let's say we do something that we call putting mental discipline, right? You can see here that all my player will be noting down is the distance he hit in feet. Let's say it's a 25-foot putt, and how good his mental process score was. Okay, so what we're going to do, what we do is we tend to rate ourselves. So let's say, for example, I hit the putt and I hit the putt without fear of the outcome, without fear of the negative outcome. I will give myself a 1. Next putt, let's say maybe a 5-foot putt, I try, but then I got a little nervous on it. So I give myself a 0. And now what this is doing for me also is it's helping me to build awareness of my own self. It's helping me to build awareness of when I'm getting nervous, what kind of putts. And let's say then I have a 15-foot putt, and then I do really well. I hit the putt without fear. I stay, and I have good body language. I give myself a 1. What it's doing is it's helping me understand my success rate there, right? Simple thing with putting. Now, this is just, now we're not even looking at anything but your mental process score. We're not looking at outcome here. So this is not really an outcome goal. And then we have another putting thing. Let's say we're doing 9 to 15-foot putts, right? So here I would go further again, but remember, we're still focusing on the mental side as well, because performance practice is all about your mind. So we're actually going to even give a ratings. Let's say we have a 12-foot putt here. I was free. I was very free on that putt. I didn't worry about the outcome, and I made 2 putts, right? So what is also, if I have a lot of these ones here, right? Okay, I'm going to be at 100%, and that's where I want to be. I'm also going to see the average number of putts I took over 25 putts, and obviously you want that to be probably less than 2, right? You want to have a lot of 1 putts between the 9 and 15-foot zone. So these are small things that you can do as a player. Document how you practice, especially if you're someone who's playing a lot of competition. Write down, do some calculations, use Excel if you want. I use Excel a lot, and it basically it'll show you where you need to work more. Now, I'm assuming that you already have a good routine that you follow when you putt, and this is also very, very important. And post the putt, you have good body language. These 2 things, if you can do, trust me, you'll have your best putting rounds. So what do I mean by that? Is that a routine is basically how you approach the putt. Once you've already decided where the line is, what the speed is, right? You have to now get into your focus zone. How do you get into your focus zone? You have to have something like a trigger. Let's say, for example, you like to pull your t-shirt up, right? And that's your trigger to focus. And then you look at the line of the putt, and you walk up to the putt. You get ready. You do your practice swings, and you step up to the ball. And then the moment you hit, this is where everything goes wrong. I need you to just try this. You can just hit the putt and don't move till the ball has gone 6 feet away from you. And once the ball has gone 6 feet away, just turn your eyes, look at the ball, and stay in this position till the ball stops. Now, here's a funny thing. How does this affect what the outcome is going to be? But I'll tell you, it's going to make you focus more on the process. What's my process? I hit the putt and I don't move until the ball stops. How many of you can do this? Very, very small percentage, because this takes a lot of discipline. And that's why this needs to be practiced as well. So if you have good habits with your body language and your process and your documentation to understand where you're going wrong, which type of putt is affecting you more. And remember, when you're writing stuff down, it's not that we're going to calculate everything. It's just making you more aware. Because when you write stuff down, you know you have to be aware of these particular elements when you putt, because you've got to give them a rating after you hit the putt. And this is just putting. You can do this with your long game and your short game as well. But this is how I would suggest that you practice, in the in season or just before the season is starting. And drills can be, have a 6-foot circle around the hole, put 6 balls, try to hold all of them. If you hold all of them, then you go to the 7-foot. But the key thing is that every putt you hit has to be hit like you're in that tournament. If you don't do that, and what happens is that we all get lazy after 5 putts, and what do? We go back to, and you see a lot of guys practicing like machine guns. They'll hit the putt, they take the next ball, they'll hit the putt again, they take the next ball. Nothing is happening. And these are the players you normally see who putt and practice for 6-7 hours a day, but they don't get better. So quality guys, if you do 25 to 50 putts a day in this performance zone, without even practicing your technique, trust me, you will get much, much better. So try these things. You can always give me some feedback later as to how these have worked.
Okay, sir. Next question from Rashid Valotia from Kolkata. Can you please show us the correct grip for putting?
Another very good question, and another very difficult question to answer. So, ideally in putting, right? And you need to understand that your wrists have many different movements. This is called radial deviation. This is called ulnar deviation. This is called flexion or extension, depending on the wrist, right? So here my left wrist is flexing and my right wrist is extending, opposite here. And I have a forearm movement, which is supination and pronation, right? Then I have basically the shoulder retracting and protracting, right? I have the elbows lengthening, extending, and flexing. So why I'm telling you all of this is because all of these movements can actually happen in a putting stroke. And that is why many times you see the people who putt are not consistent because they could be radially deviating, they could be ulnar deviating, they could be flexing, extending the elbows, retracting the shoulders. There's so much. So we call these the degrees of freedom. There are innumerable degrees of freedom when you putt. And the whole idea of a putting grip, okay, is to reduce the amount of movement, at least up to the forearm. So what we do here with the grip is what we will try to do is get the palms facing more this way rather than that way, because the more my hands are like this, and more it mimics my golf grip. And if it mimics my golf grip, it's giving that freedom, because in golf we want these movements. Now here's what I need to do is I need to move that way. Now that's the hard part. So on a putter, if you see, I will basically move both my hands outwards just to show you. I'm going to come a little closer. If this is my regular golf grip, I don't want this because this is allowing for freedom. I want to turn my hands more outwards. So if you see how my hands are set up on the grip, both my hands are turned fairly outwards. I have the reverse overlap grip. Now it doesn't matter whether I have the grip, the left hand low or the right hand lower. I need to have and maintain this relationship. Why that is because if I am turned out, the amount I can radially deviate or move my wrists, right, is much less. I have a much better control over the putter face. Now we have another grip that you have where you have the arm lock, right? If you have a longer putter, you can actually go into an arm lock. This is for some people who have a problem with breaking of the wrist too early. So you have this little arm lock and then you can move the putter that way. Then you also have the claw, right? So you can hold the putter this way. Now what this does is, you see, if you have somebody who is moving the putter too much, pronating, supinating the forearm, and you want to reduce that, right? You can just move the claw grip. Now I can't move. Now my hand can only move in this plane. It can't move in that plane, right? So that's why you can actually go to the claw grip. So with all these variations, right? If you work with an expert, it's always better for the expert to understand why he would change your grip. But I'll tell you something. Justin Rose, when he was playing his best golf, and I know this because I work with his coach very closely, is just for fun, he moved from the regular grip to the claw. And he started putting really well. And that's how we adopted that. So that's something you can do as well. Experiment and find out which putter works, which putting grip works best for you. Because you can even look at thicker grips. A thicker grip actually reduces the amount of wrist action. That's why you'll see people with these huge jumbo grips. I'm not a big fan of them because what I feel is when you have a big jumbo grip, it takes the feel away from the putter head. But you have many players really putting well with that. So, that's also fine. Just make sure that you have these fundamentals in place, that your palms always pointed outwards. So even if you have the left hand lower grip, you can go that way, right? But make sure the palms are facing outwards, right? That's what you want to do.
Okay, so next question from Kaustubh Kumar from Chittaranjan. How can I judge the slope of the green and the distance? And also, how can I improve my alignment?
All of this is training, and especially alignment. Now, when you talk about alignment, you're talking about alignment of your body. There's another aspect to alignment, which is the aim of the putter face. Again, if you have some good tools with you, you can really improve that. So one of the things that I really suggest a lot of you people buy is this little laser, right? So it's a laser that tells me where I'm aiming. Now what I do is I put the putter down and I have to practice aim. So I get my caddy or my partner to keep putting the laser on this little putter and it'll tell me where I'm aiming. So let's say I want to aim at the screen and I aim and I put the thing down, laser down, and I see, whoa, I'm aiming way right or way left. And if you have something like an aim board, which is even more interesting, not sure if you can see that. The aim board actually will tell you how much I am aimed left or right of that hole. So aiming is one thing. Alignment is different. Alignment, you talk about your body aligns, right? You talk about more of your body lines. So you want to see that your shoulders, your knees, your eyes are more parallel. And that brings me to a very important point about the eyes. Your eyes also need to be parallel to the target line. You'll see a lot of putters, the eye line will be turned this way, right? Or that way. That actually affects how you align. So your head needs to be back at neutral. So those are your body alignments. And then you have your face aim. Face aim again needs to be trained, right? So you need to have some sort of a tool. Now, if you don't have a laser again, all you need is a string, but you need a little bit of help with that, right? You have to get two partners. They put the string down over your putter line and they extend it straight down and you'll see where you're aiming. But without training, it's very difficult for you to improve all of this stuff. And you have to have training with feedback. A lot of us go to the putting green and we don't have a system of feedback. So if I'm not getting feedback on what I'm doing, how do I know I'm getting better? They'll say, okay, I'm going to aim at the center cup and I'm going to try and hit it. Similarly, you should be taking feedback. Hey, I hit that putt, and you can spend 1 hour just trying to figure out which part of the putter you hit. Did I hit center? Didn't feel like it. Okay, let me hit the toe purposely, let me hit the heel purposely, and come back, right? And what was the other part of the question?
How to figure out the slope of the green and the distance.
Okay, slope of the green and distance. All right, now slope of the green. So I am an aim point instructor. I don't know if you've heard of Aim Point Express as a green reading mechanism, but if you can get a hold of anybody who teaches aim point, I think in India, unfortunately, we don't have too many. But that was one way I would say is one way you should go, because it's the best green reading mechanism for somebody who doesn't have time to practice. Right now, the key thing is that our eyes actually going to show here. Hope you can see this. Our eyes actually can't process curves very well, right? So if I show you these, can you see which one is bigger? It looks like the one on the left is bigger, right? You can see that clearly. But what if I interchange them? If I interchange them, you'll see now, again, the one that was smaller is looking bigger. And why I'm explaining this to you is because you should know that our eyes alone cannot process curves, right? And this is why you need a better system of learning how to judge the slope of a putt. So again, it comes down to having a training aid, right? And there's something called a slope reader. I'm not sure if I have it here. Let me just check if I have a slope reader. Unfortunately, I don't have a slope reader right now, but that actually tells you the degree of the slope or the percentage of the slope. And through aim point, you actually learn how to feel that, right? So now, again, let's say you don't have access to aim point and things like that. Again, the only other way is training. How do we see the slope? What is the big problem in India today? Everybody has a caddy. So I have seen people and players not even bending down to even see the line of the putt. They'll stand like this and say, caddy line kya hai? Acha, left edge, theek hai. And they will hit. So how do you expect someone who's never really looking at the line himself or herself to become better at reading the line? They're not going to. Now, if you can take the caddy out of the picture for 2 months, I guarantee you, you will be reading it as good as him, if not better. It's not that the caddy knows much more than you. It's just that you probably have not made that effort to do this. But problem is, you're from Calcutta and you're playing RPGL, and your partner will get very angry if you miss the putt. So naturally, you have to ask the caddy, right? And it's funny as it may sound, that's true. So you never really get a chance to develop as a player. So you have to take these decisions, especially if you want to develop as a player, and guaranteed within 3 to 4 months, you are reading every single green. And you know, the problem with reading the green or asking the caddy too much is how well you putt is only dependent on how good the caddy is. Not only that, this is another thing I've seen with the caddies. If they've given you the long line, but you hit it on that line and the ball doesn't go in, the caddy will say, nice, sir, push kiya aapne. Aapne pull kiya. And then you're like, yeah, maybe I pushed it, maybe I pulled it. Right? So right now it's advantage caddies. Caddy is 1, member is 0. You need to now change that equation. Of course, most caddies will find it a little tough to do, and because they love talking and they love giving you lines and advice. But if you can actually start playing the game yourself, especially in the short game around the greens, I think you'll become a much better player.
So next question from Orghosha. How to control putting speed with long putters?
So when I spoke about controlling speed, whichever putter you're using, what was the key thing? The key dynamic we spoke about, okay, was the putter should not be accelerating through impact. It should be at constant speed or maybe even decelerating a little bit. So if I have a 5-foot putt, I go this way. If I have a 10-foot putt, I go that way. If I have a 30-foot putt, I go that way. So when I take a longer backswing, the message that's going to my brain is that I don't have to hit it hard because I've got enough swing to get the ball to the target. The problem happens when we take a very short backswing. Then the message going from our brain is, oh my God, this is not going to reach the hole. I better really accelerate a lot. And that's how you tend to have issues with controlling the distance. So irrespective of the putter, dynamics of the putter head are the same. And you'll see most players, and I can actually show you this. I'll just share my screen really quickly. This is maybe a little technical, but I'll try and see if you can understand this. This is because this is based on research. We have this is the movement dynamics of a player, and what you're seeing here. I hope you can see my cursor. Is my cursor clear?
Yes.
Right. So this is the acceleration graph here, and these straight lines that you see are where the player makes impact. You can see the player is making impact very close to 0 line, which is a 0 acceleration. And this is a fairly good player. So all good players, you will find the impact will be very, very close to 0 acceleration. Right? And then from there, the acceleration will completely drop off, and it will go into deceleration. But for an amateur golfer, you will see this line keep accelerating more and more, even after impact. And that is how you know that a player actually is accelerating through impact. And of course, we've used the technology to figure this out. Not all of us have access to that technology, but just to show you. So whatever said and done, distance control, a big issue in putting, but it's about learning how to keep the putter at constant speed or maybe slightly decelerating.
Okay, so next question, how to see that the green is fast or medium or slow?
That's another question, I guess. And if you golf course, right, and most often they have the simpler 9, 10, who knows. If you're somebody who's used to that, you could probably use that as a gauge. But then you have golf courses that don't have that, and you don't have that. One way to figure it out, right? And the only way to figure it out is to actually hit putts and see. So sometimes it might take you 1 or 2 greens to get used to, because I know that many people have this rating. Ye green fast hai, ye green slow hai, ye green medium hai. To me, honestly, that means nothing. It is very difficult to say what is a medium that the caddy is saying compared to what my medium is very difficult. So obviously the length of the grass makes a difference. If the grass is obviously very tall on the green, not cut, you know it's slightly slower than normal. If the grass is very finely cut, you know it's going to be faster than normal. But until you actually hit the putt, right, you're not going to know. So if you're going to a new golf course, don't know the speed of the green, don't worry. Allow it to take you 3 to 4 holes or 2 to 3 holes to get used to it. By then, you'll know what the general speed greens are. Don't necessarily go by medium, fast, because a stimp 10 could be a medium for somebody, but could be a fast for me. Right? So if my caddy tells me in that course that, sir, ye medium hai or ye fast hai, but 10 is only medium for me, it won't work. So again, try to feel this yourself. And if you have good distance control, if you have a good swing where you're not accelerating too much, you have constant speed, you'll obviously make a much better putt and you'll get used to the speed much faster.
Okay, so next question from Naman Mishra. How tightly should I hold my club grip while putting a ball into a hole across a slope?
Oh, complicated questions. Grip pressure. Grip pressure, honestly speaking, we have putters all over the world who hold it very tight, and we have putters who hold it very loose. And we have people who are in between. Let me tell you, there's no right answer here. There is no right answer here, okay? Because as long as you can maintain that pressure and don't change it, the putter face is going to stay stable. Okay, very, very critically. So don't think about I need to hold it loose. There is no
Sir, your voice on video is breaking again.
There is no stand. Is that any better?
Now it's better. Can you please repeat the answer again? Because
Yeah.
I think nobody would listen.
Okay, so the question was about the grip pressure. So now, guys, and understand that nobody in the world has the same grip pressure, and there are players who hold it tightly and very well. There are players who hold it loose and putt very well. You go find your comfort zone. So there is no standard in grip pressure or for sloping putts or non-sloping putts. You got to find what works for you, and that comes through practice and experimentation. So if you like to hold the putter grip on a scale of 1 to 10 at a grip pressure of 6, and it works for you, you move with that. If you like to hold the putter grip in a grip pressure of, let's say, 2 or 3, and it works for you, you stick to that. But make sure that you are consistent, right? Don't change every week, because that's what actually leads to the inconsistency. So pressure, not a.
How to see the line on the putting green?
You are trying to do that, right? It's very simple. Your eyes are powerful to a certain extent, right? And if you don't have a scientific way of doing it, it's okay. Just see, just like you're going on the road and the road curves, your instinct takes over and you'll turn the steering wheel a little bit to the left. Or if you're riding a bicycle and there's a curve, automatically you'll turn the bicycle hand a little bit to the left. Let green reading also be instinctive, right? It's got to be a good mix of instinctive and science. But if you don't build the instinctive part first, right, you're never going to be a great reader. So all you do is go on your practice reading and practice reading parts. So I think that this is 3 inches left. Put a T marker at 3 inches left and hit 3 putts and see what happens. See how good you are. Guaranteed, I guarantee you, in a few weeks you'll get better. In a few months you'll be perfect. But try and do this. Don't be dependent on anybody else.
Okay. So next question: where do we get these training aids if we want to buy?
So a good question again. So I work with a putting coach called Phil Kenyon, right? And his company is called Vizio. So if you go to Vizio online, and there is a dealer in India called Nikhil Raj, who's in Bangalore. He deals in all these training aids. They've got some fantastic training aids. And what I will do is, it's actually on my website as well. Nikhil, who's our club fitter, is on our website. And if for those of you who really want his contact number, I can send it to the ProTouch team and you can take it from them.
Sure.
These are made in the UK, by the way, so a little difficult to get.
Okay, sir. So next question from Mr. Rajmohan Krishnan. Can you please explain more about the arc you mentioned?
Okay, good question. Right? So every putter, when it moves back in a circle, in a circular fashion. Why? Because the putter handle is here. If I just held the handle here and I push the putter back, it has to move in an arc. This is the natural way a putter moves. Now, depending on the angle of the putter, the arc will be different. But the key is to allow that natural arc to happen, and not kind of force it to happen. So how you can train this again is by just purely getting into a better setup position. If I get into a better setup position over the ball, okay, just move my arms, you'll see the putter arcs automatically. But obviously we don't, now again, like I said, different wrist movements, right? Ulnar, radial, extension, flexion. Now, if I have any excess movements other than the normal movement of the shoulders and arms, I could have excessive arc, right? So you want to keep those two minimal, and you can use the putting track here and just try to make sure that the putter does not arc too far inwards. Keep it fairly close, as you can see here, and then forward back into the track. We call this the putting track, slightly inwards and back. And you can do this hundreds of times at home, and you'll be surprised as to how much your putting improves. Don't fight the arc, right? But you can also train a minimal arc. We don't want too much, right? So you don't want to, because if I make a putter go straight back, you can see it goes completely off the plane, and actually the putter then is very, very de-lofted, and all kinds of things can happen from there. The angle of attack goes more downwards, the ball roll gets affected, right? And why this is important is because how the ball rolls off the putter, is very, very important. So one of the things that I would like to mention that, since I'm thinking about this, is when you address the ball, please always have a slight forward press or a forward shaft lean, because all your putters have loft, right? They do have loft, and you want to reduce that a little bit, and you want a better roll on the ball. And you can basically, the analogy is, if I was rolling one of those cycle tires on the road, and this was my putter face, I would not keep the putter like that. I would deal off the putter to make sure the tire stayed on the ground. Okay, so you do want to have a little forward shaft lean. Now, what is the danger of not having this nice roll? I'm just going to, again, share my screen here, okay, with you guys. Show you the danger of not. So these are two putts hit, guys, by the same player. Now, just to explain this to you, this is a 15-foot putt. Okay, this is a 15-foot putt. So on a 15-foot putt, we want the ball to achieve one full roll by the time it's gone 10% of the distance. And that means that you're more likely to have the right kind of speed and the ball to hug the right kind of line. Let's look at the putt on the left. As this player hits the ball, you can see the ball is actually taking off in the air, right? The ball has taken off. It's kind of gotten off the ground. Now, obviously, it'll only come down much later. It'll come down only at about 10 inches and then start to roll or bounce. What is the danger of this? The danger is that you might have a 10-foot putt or a 15-foot putt, and you hit a great putt. You feel you hit a great putt. The ball, you feel you started the ball on line, but the ball didn't go in the hole. That is because the ball landed and deviated because it bounced offline. Now, let's look at the one on the right. We got this player to deal off the putter a little bit and have a little bit of shaft lean. And as he putted this time, you can see the ball starts to roll almost immediately. And if you look at that vertical line, it's gone to quarter roll by 10 inches, half roll, let's say by 15 inches, and by 18 inches, he's at 3/4 of a roll, if you look at that. Now, this player obviously is going to be putting much, much better. So it's very, very important that you focus on those little launch conditions as well. If you have the putter slightly de-lofted, right, and you can use your iPhone camera, put it down on the green, right, mark a line on the ball, and you can actually have your caddy or someone lie down and help you out with that. So when you address the putter, always make sure there's a little bit of shaft lean, and you maintain that shaft lean as you go through. Don't let that happen. Okay, that is the bad move right there. Slide. So it'll feel like almost like you're keeping your left wrist very, very, very stable and locked and in a flexed position. We call it a flexed position. You get a much better roll on the ball, much more chances of holding more putts. So you can test it again. Like I said, everything is doable. You can test it with your iPhone camera in slow-mo mode, and you'll see what your ball is actually doing. So as part of the setup, definitely the arc is one thing, but also the launch is very, very important. How is the ball launching off your putter face?
Okay. So before we go to the next question, we have about 20 questions piled up already. So
wow.
I think we can go on for another hour also. If
I'm okay, guys. Yeah. Also, please send in some messages because I'm here to also do chipping today. But I know putting is a vast science in golf. I can also touch a little bit upon chipping. If you'd like me to do that, we can also go a little bit towards the chipping side now. Talk about the basic chip shot and what you want to see. If all of you are keen on this, then just message in yes, so that the moderator will know that you guys are really, really interested in that as well. We can cover both putting and chipping today. And we can always come back to putting questions, and we can go to chipping questions, and you can ask either or. Does that sound good to you guys? Let me know. Okay. Please type in yes, so I can then go into the chipping.
So if we are going to chipping, then we have to postpone the next question. So is that okay with you guys?
Okay, and let's go to chipping anyway, because like I said, we have time.
Okay, so we'll move to chipping, sir, and I'll hold on to the question. I'll hold on to the questions. If we have time, we'll try to answer them also.
You can always come back. Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, here's my 54-degree sand wedge. I think you guys all have a 56-degree or a 60-degree or a 52-degree. Quick thing about chipping and understanding chipping. The most important thing is when you chip is you need to understand the club head and its interaction with the ground and the turf, not the ball. Everybody is focused on hitting that ball clean, hitting the ball first, and that's where they're making the mistake. And that's where you have a lot of guys hitting these big duffs and these tops, is the focus is wrong. Now, this might seem a little strange to you, right? But as I explain the concept further, I'm sure you'll understand it. And hopefully someday if we do meet, I can even demonstrate it. And you'll see this with all good players who chip. What you want to do here is understand, number one, all the best players in the world today don't use different clubs to chip. They stick with one club. They hit low shots, they hit mid-level shots, they hit high shots. So if you were to categorize flight, it could go low, mid, high. 3 basic ball flights if you have in chipping, you can chip really, really well. And you can do that with this one club. Okay? And I'm going to show you how. Now, what are we talking about when we talk about club and turf interaction? It's how your club actually interacts with that turf that actually decides what that ball is going to do and how good your contact is. Now, for those of you who know it, this part of the ball, this part of the club is called the bounce. The bounce is your magic wand. Let's put it that way. That's the magical part of the golf club that will ensure that no matter what tournament you're playing, even if it's a high pressure RPGL, I say RPGL because I've not seen more pressure than that in any other club tournament, is you will never duff a chip again. I'll repeat that. So you will never duff a chip again. So the reason is there are 2 parts to the club that you need to know. One is the bounce. The other one is the leading edge. Now, most of us who have been taught to chip, right, have been told to keep the hands forward. Okay? And you know what that does? that brings your leading edge into play, and that's going to make you come down very steep, and you're going to hit a lot of duffs under pressure. So the first thing in chipping, and what I'm showing you is the basic chip shot that can apply for any shot up to about 15, 20 yards away from the green. Okay, you could be 5 yards from the hole, you could be 10 yards from the hole. We don't want the hands forward because the leading edge is going to come in and you're going to dig into the ground. And that's what most people tend to do, and they wonder why they duff the shots. It's because of that. A few other things happen under pressure. I'll talk about that also in a bit. So what do we want to do and how do we ensure that the bounce is more in play? Two adjustments you're going to have to make. When you address a ball. The first adjustment, okay, is you want to be closer to the ball by just bending your arms a little bit. Second is you don't want any shaft lean. So you want your hands in line with your belt buckle. You don't want it forward. You don't want your weight too much forward. You can have it fairly neutral in the center. The one thing that you will change here in your chipping action is you will open the club face maybe 10 degrees or 15 degrees. What does that do? And why do we need to open the club face? The club face is going to now activate this magical part of the club called the bounce. Now with the bounce, guys, the magic is you can hit anywhere from 1 to 4 inches behind the ball, a highly skilled player also, and you will still hit a good shot. So that increases your margin for error. If you're going to have your hands way forward, you're going to see it's going to reduce your margin for error. Okay? So in chipping, you've got to make sure that your hands are level, one, your face is slightly open, and what you're doing is, again, we spoke about all the wrist actions, radial deviation, ulnar deviation, flexion, extension. We don't want all that. We want a very even action that looks like this. So you can see how much I've had to turn my body. And it's very important that you guys involve your bodies even on a 5-yard chip shot. Even if it's just this much of a swing, I'm involving my body. Why do I need to involve my body? So that it keeps the rest of it stable. And I don't have to use any of that to attack the ball. So if I bend forward here, okay, and I go back, I don't want any wrist action. Okay, I just want to move back with my arms and hands. Okay, minimal wrist action. You can see my arms are still bent. I don't want to straighten it out. Okay, and there's a reason for that I'll come to. And when you go through, okay, you finish up like this. Now, we start off with the ball position in the middle. If you want a slightly higher shot, you want to start off with the ball position forward. So there are two flights to work with primarily, right? The first flight is the mid flight, and the second one is the higher flight. So when do we put the hands forward or the ball position at the back? I would say only do that if the lie is very bad. If your ball's sitting in a divot, then you have to punch down into it. You have to use the leading edge. Only then you do that. If you use these two ball positions and these two flights, the mid and the high, you really don't need anything else. You don't need anything else. So if you keep your face open, okay, now what happens is that for those who don't understand geometry, my radius, okay, that is the distance from my, let's say, my center of my body to the club head should remain the same. What happens to people under pressure is that radius changes. For example, if I have excessive shaft lean, what happens is my radius has become shorter. So then I'll have to go down with the right shoulder to try and reach the ball. And that's where the leading edge comes in and a big duff. So what we want is, we want the radius remaining constant through the shot. So simple action, face slightly open, feet narrow and relaxed. Let's swing 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And notice I've turned my body. And the finish position is very critical, is the butt of that club is pointing at my belt buckle. Okay? And when you talk about this movement, it's a lot of body action. This is called the pivot. We'll call that the pivot. You control the distance the ball flies based on the speed of the pivot. But now coming back to the turf and club interaction, in a good chip shot, there is absolutely zero divot. There is no divot. And that's how you know you're chipping it well. Okay, and when there's no divot, what happens is the ball interacts with the bottom part of the club face first, right? Where you will see more friction on the club, and again gives you a little more spin and control on the slightly longer chip shots. But by and large, on the shorter chips, we really don't want spin because we want the ball to roll and go in the hole. We don't want it spinning and stopping short of the hole. So we don't really want to spin these chips. If you're hitting it from 40 to 50 yards, the concept is similar, and yes, then we want to spin. We want the ball to bounce and stop. But by and large, if you see a divot happening, right, something is wrong. So I'm going to give you a very, very nice drill that you can do to understand the lack of radius change and to reduce your radius change. Because most people and most club golfers and juniors tend to increase the length of the radius. They increase it and they duff the ball. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, after you get into the setup position, you're going to hit the ball and purposely pull your hands back. So it'll look like this. Back, pull your hands back towards you. Very, very funny feeling, right? But you'll actually start to hit those chips a lot crisper. It's a nice drill. It's a nice drill to do. And what it actually does is it prevents you from actually increasing your radius, either with the shoulders or with the elbows. It prevents that. So when you go back, keep this fairly stable. You don't want too much wrist action either way. Think about this. If I plug this into my belt, this is what it would feel like. That's what actually a chip shot is. So the key thing here, and I think where most club golfers go wrong, is the club and turf interaction hasn't been understood. But when you start hitting behind the ball by 2 inches, and even then you'll start to see your ball going near the hole, you'll understand how important the bounce is. So just to elaborate on this, I think I can show you, I'm going to show you some of my players chipping. Let me just see if I have something. Okay, so these are some of my players. Just to see on the left here, okay, you see he's got a bit of shaft lean there. Now you can definitely see that. That's what he's been used to. But if you look at his club and turf interaction, you will see there's no divot. You can see, can you see how open his club face is? You can see the club face is very, very open there. And you always see that. And as he goes through, his hands are too far forward. They come now level with the hands, right? And he's made absolutely no divot. And you can see how he's turned the body beautifully. Minimal action of the wrist or minimal negative action of the wrist. His radius has remained fairly the same. And this is what your basic mid-flight looks like. Now on the right-hand side, we have a player. So we have a player who's hitting actually a bump and run low shot, right? And you see his hands are not too far forward. But again, look at the club and action there. Even that's like an 8-iron, there's zero divot there. There is no divot as this player hits the shot, right? So he's controlling his radius beautifully through the shot. So both kinds of shots, if you do really want to hit, a low chip, you can definitely change your club. But again, understand it's a lot of body action going through, right? And if you see here again, the butt of his club is actually pointing at his belt buckle. So this is your basic baseline chip shot. You'll see most good players, again, like I said, not really going to different clubs. But all good players have this in common. All good players have good club turf interaction. So if you can just practice that. Now you can practice that at home. I've got this carpet over here, right? So what I'm doing is, when I hit a chip shot, okay, I'm going to hit this towards you. I'm going to be able to feel, as I hit this shot, okay, I can feel that my bounce, or this part of the club, okay, is actually interacting with the ground first. It's not the leading edge, right? So it feels like, wow, I hit that almost 1.5 inches behind. right? But I still got a decent shot, and that's what you should feel. So when you're in the rough, whether you're in the on the fringe, right? The concept is the same. Don't change the concept. You've got to master. So this is what we call, or what I call, the baseline chip shot. This is baseline. From here, you can innovate. If I want to hit a slightly higher shot, I will open the club face, and then what I will do is I will get the ball position more closer to my left foot. But I will make exactly the same action. I will make exactly the same action. If I want to hit it further, yes, I will take it further up and further through. But this is now a way for you guys to hit a high shot without any overly complicated move. You see some people, want to hit a high shot, they'll widen their stance, they'll get down, they'll open the face. That's not required for 99% of your golf game. It's really not required. Now, if you want to hit the low shot, right? Again, you want to place the ball further back in your stance. Now, here's the thing: when you place it back in your stance, you're going to automatically get some shaft lean, right? If you get some shaft lean, now you have to be able to control your radius, right? So again, you can try the same action where you kind of pull the hands closer to you. Pull the hands closer to you. This will ensure that again you don't dig in, and the ball flies out nice and low. So the baseline is basically middle ball position, mid ball flight. You can change the club face to open forward ball flight. You can change the club to not closed but de-lofted. Remember, this is closing the club. So here we are not closing the club. When we have our ball position at the back, we are actually de-lofting the club. We're not closing it, we're just de-lofting it. Okay? But my suggestion to all of you guys is stay away from the ball position back. You really don't need it. Now, what's happening here is that when you hit these shots, and you're going to hit less of the low ones, you're going to hit more of the mid and the high ones, mostly the mid one, your ball flight, your carry to roll ratio will be almost 50-50. And that's the easiest way to judge a chip shot. You won't have to worry about, hey, if I drop it here, how much will it roll? You will start to see that your carry to roll ratio will be about 50-50. So you know that if you have a 20-yard chip shot, you're going to fly at about 10, right? And it'll roll up another 10. Not exact. I know it's not going to be exact, but it'll be somewhere around there. So again, you'll be so much more consistent in terms of being able to hit the ball closer. So that's pretty much it about chipping, right? And also in the rough, yes, I forgot, the bounce will really save you. So don't close the club face in the rough. Open the face so that the ball can slide through the rough very, very easily. There is, if it's super deep rough, then there is obviously a slight alteration you can make by getting the club a little more upright, right? So stand closer, so you address the ball on the toe, because the toe slides through the rough much easier than the hosel, because the hosel is the one that gets stuck in the rough and the face does all kinds of things. That's something that you can do, but that's a speciality shot. Again, I'm saying that that's probably something you would use 1% of the time when you're playing golf, unless you've gone to a golf course with very, very thick rough. So that's pretty much it on my presentation on the baseline chipping shot, and that's all you need to know. Again, if you have any questions, and if we can also, if you want to address some questions on the putting, if you have more, we can do that.
Okay,
do let me know.
We have some 20 questions in putting, and we have some questions coming in for chipping also. Which
Okay.
one would you like to answer first, sir?
Let's go with the chipping first, and then.
Okay, so chipping we'll start with. First question from Avantika Mehta, Kolkata. How to chip well from the rough?
Okay, so there again, if you can, as I mentioned, if you can practice your baseline chipping action, right? And remember, when your ball's in the rough, it always looks worse than it is. So that's the first thing that causes an issue with the player. But, oh my God, it's in the rough, it's sitting down, it's not going to come out. You have to realize that your club is very powerful. If you have a good, decent sand wedge, right, or a lob wedge, all you got to do again in the rough is put that ball in the middle of your stance and just do the baseline action. That's all you got to do. Use the bounce. Make sure that the club is not going to get stuck in because of the leading edge. And if the rough is super duper thick, right, at that point, yes, maybe then you need to kind of get your putter, or you need to get your club a little more upright like this. Come closer to the ball and use the toe, hit the ball of the toe part. But that's a specialty shot, and I don't suggest you do that until you actually have a good feel of the baseline action. The funny thing is that, I mean, I've been to Calcutta as well. I've seen the rough out there. The baseline shot will work for almost any kind of lie around your greens, pretty much.
Okay. So next question from Naman Mishra. How much do the hips and the body play a factor while chipping?
Oh, that's a good question. Again, as I mentioned, very, very important, right? The pivot is a critical element in helping you generate speed and also keeping the arms and the body more connected so that there's no separation and additional movements that can change the radius of the shot of your lever. And if your radius changes, that's where. So if you, I see a lot of players sometimes they finish like this, right? That's a radius change right there. Or players finish like this. That's a radius change right there. Okay. So if you just match up again, belt, buckle, grip, just learn this feeling. Match it up, right? So you'll see that I cannot get the club to that position unless I turn my body. If I don't turn my body, right, something else can happen to get the club there, right? So you must control the entire action with the hips. So 5-yard chip, there you go. 10-yard chip, maybe a little bit more. 15-yard chip, maybe a little bit more. And each time you go longer, you'll also have to correspondingly change the speed of the pivot or the turn of your body.
Okay. Next question from Laksh Rampuria. How to chip properly although our ball is stuck in the divot?
Okay, so the divot one, you've got really no choice. That's the one where you've got to use the leading edge, ball position back in your stance. Okay, and ball position back, hands forward, and here you've got to definitely hit down on the ball, right? Because you've got to learn to punch down into the shot. You've got no choice there. Those are shots which come out with very little control. But again, if you go to a practice green and find divots and put your ball into the divot and actually start seeing how your ball comes out and you practice it from the divots, nothing like it. You'll actually know how to predict what that ball is going to do. And this is what better players do. They practice from so many different types of lies that they know and they can predict what their golf ball is going to do around the greens.
Okay. Next question from Rajmohan Krishnan. Is the finish position is irrespective of the distance?
That's a good question. Very, very good question. So I would say this would work. This finish position would work up to, let's say, about 15 to 20 yards of flight. As you go further, yes, you'll have to move away from the baseline action, right, and go up further. The pivot remains the same. The relationship that the arms and the body share remains the same, right? The length that the club is swinging post impact, ideally, if you can match it up, if it's, let's say, at this position in the backswing, kind of match it up over there, right? That's really up to you. Again, coming back to what's most important is your club and turf interaction. And once you've got the baseline down, from the baseline, you move back. So if this is my baseline and I've completely figured out the action, then I want to hit it 30 yards. I just use the same thing, but a slightly faster pivot and maybe a longer swing. The key here is good club turf interaction. You're safe. You're going to hit really good shots.
Okay, I'll put the next three questions together as it's pretty much the same one. From
Okay.
Vivan, Aranyak and Laksh. How to chip from the bunker and how to do backspin from bunker?
That's usually a question I'll only get from junior golfers because for them the spin is very, very important.
Yeah,
Now, let me tell you something, guys. I want you guys to move away from this notion of wanting to spin the ball. You don't need to spin the ball in the bunker, okay, or from the bunker. And now, while the sand automatically will create a lot of friction between your club face, okay, and the ball, right? Most often, you always want the ball releasing a little bit. Reason being that you want the ball to go in the hole. If my ball's going to spin every time, it's not going to go in the hole, right? Now, being said, when you guys hit longer bunker shots, what happens automatically is the club interacts a little bit less with the sand. You take less sand out because you got to hit that longer bunker shot, and automatically your body creates that. That's when you have the maximum friction, and that's when you'll see a 40-yard bunker shot will fly, will land, and will just stop right there. And it looks really pretty as a shot, right? It's great. That should happen naturally. Now, coming back to your first part of the question was how do you hit a bunker shot, correct?
Right.
How do you hit a bunker shot? Okay, so the bunker is slightly different. Okay, the first thing is the ball position in the bunker, and this is something that is different for different players. I think the ball position in the bunker needs to be more or less towards your left heel. Okay, but I must tell you there are players who have it slightly further back. The bunker is another very complicated shot in terms of how you can use your wrists to correctly get the club entering and exiting the sand. But the basic action would be get the ball opposite your left heel, because that will ensure that you hit the ball at least about 2 or 3 inches behind the ball. That's what you want. Now, in terms of how you set up, guys, very, very important. In a bunker, you want to get wider, okay, with the stance, and you want to get lower down, okay? When you get lower down, what's it going to do is going to increase the effective loft of your club, one, and two, it's going to help you remain shallow through the shot. You don't have a chance of digging in, because when I am very, very low and down, I have no choice. I can't go vertical. And while a lot of you might have been told that, yes, you need to be vertical in the bunker, that is not true. You actually need to be very shallow in the bunker. And because of this habit of trying to be very vertical, you tend to duff a lot of shots because you tend to take too much sand. The beauty of this setup over here, when you get wider and you get lower, is that no matter what I do, I can't get deep. And because the ball position is forward in my stance, is more towards my left leg, I am going to take a nice shallow divot. Golf swing, guys, back, through, all the way. Keep your lower body as stable as possible. One of the ways to do it is not lift your leg in the bunker, is to actually learn to get down and hit shots just with your hands and wrists. You see what my wrists are doing? This is very, very critical in the bunker. This is known as the extension of my lead wrist. It's not supinating or pronating, it's extending. And what that does is it keeps the club face continuously being open. You don't want the club face closing in the bunker shot. So what you're going to practice, really, if you want to be a good bunker player, is a good wide and low setup and lots of extension through impact. At the same action is exactly the same as chipping. We want the bounce interacting with the sand and not the leading edge. So naturally, when we set up in the bunker, we want to open up the club face, get lower down, nice amount of wrist action going through, and the ball will pop up nice, high and soft. And yes, it will be a pretty looking shot that hopefully releases and goes in the hole many times.
Okay, next question. Short distance chipping, bomb and run, what position one does follow?
Just repeat that, please.
This is from Ragmohan Krishna. Short distance chipping, bomb and run, what position one does follow?
Yeah, so coming back to that thing I spoke about earlier. And when you talk about bump and run, guys, don't straight away go into the feeling that I have to get my hands forward. Doesn't necessarily have to be that. Go back to the baseline action, right? Because if you have a short swing, the ball is going to fly low anyway, whether you use a lob wedge, a sand wedge, or a gap wedge. So you don't need to go to the bump and run as such. You just go to a regular baseline chip shot and you'll start to see magic. So ball position center, again, hands even, not forward, and the baseline action, a little bit of torso turn. The torso turn should be basically dependent on how far you want the ball to fly. So a short one would be just this much. That's fine. As long as the butt of the club is still pointing at my belly button, I'm going to be okay.
Okay. Next question from Dishan Ghosh. How to hit a flop shot?
Yes, how to hit a flop shot. That's another very, very complicated one. But the flop shot, guys, is exactly like the bunker. If you're good at bunker play or you're good at flop shots, you'll be good at the other one. Okay? In the flop shot, you want the ball to take off very high, very quickly. So again, what we're going to do, we're going to have the ball placed more forward in the stance. Okay? Here you can get your weight also slightly forward if you want. But this comes through a little bit of experimentation because your low point can change depending on how quickly you extend your lead wrist. Remember the extension. But again, here in the flop shot, a nice high backswing, a long backswing, face open, ball forward, low down. The lower you get, the more the effective loft increases of the club face, and make a nice, full, smooth action. Again, here you want to keep your rear leg very, very quiet because you don't want your body center moving too much. You want to move, you want to change the center of the body or the low point purely with the wrist action. So here, back through, and finish up here. So try to copy this action. You'll see it's very, very effective in hitting a flop shot. My advice, though, again, is practice a flop shot a lot, but use it very prudently because a lot of players, a lot of you junior golfers use it when it's not required also. So be sure that you have to hit a flop because if you do the baseline shot with the forward ball position, you'll get just as good a result as the flop shot. And it's a higher percentage shot than the flop shot. You can just do the baseline action with the ball forward in your stance. Okay? Club face open nicely and just the baseline action. Right? And you will hit 9 out of 10 shots perfectly that way. The flop shot, because it's a longer shot, the amount that you release the club through impact can vary. The contact point can vary much more. You'll be, I think, a little less consistent with that. Not to say you shouldn't practice it, guys. It's a good shot to have. There's no doubt. It's about how you use it to improve your scoring.
Okay, how to approach the longer bunker shots?
That's a very, very good question. Who asked this question?
Avikansh Basu.
Avikansh, okay. I hope you're doing good. Hope your ball's flying straighter now. That means I hope you've been practicing. So longer bunker shots, guys. Most of us have 3 or 4 wedges in our bag. The problem happens when we try to hit all the bunker shots with one club, right? Don't force it. What you got to do is you got to find your comfort zone with each golf club, right? And let's say, for example, I use my lob wedge in the bunker, right? And I know that this is my comfort swing. Okay, that's my comfortable speed. Now let's say that goes a maximum. It goes a maximum of 35 yards. At that point, I won't try to hit a 40-yard shot with the same club. I will then take my 54 and I will experiment with my 54 to see how far that goes, right? So I hit 54. So you can cover all the way up to 40 to 50 yards with your lob wedge, sand wedge, and your gap wedge. My advice to all of you, though, is to get a nice branded sand wedge and gap wedge and lob wedge because they will really help. Most of the game improvement clubs or normal sets, they come with very, very high bounce, where it's difficult to get the club under the ball easily in the sand. But remember, rhythm is very important in the bunker. So you don't want to be pushing that too hard to get to that particular distance. Keep the rhythm the same. So find what your maximum distance is with a good rhythm with your 58 or your 60-degree club, and find what your distances are with the 54, and then like at the same thing with your gap wedge. And then how do you hit the shorter bunker shots? And within that is, again, you don't really reduce the swing. You learn how to control speed. So this could go maybe 15 yards. I hit the same swing but accelerate more. That could go maybe 25 yards, but that comes with your practice.
Okay, so in chipping, one more question. How does one control distance, specifically when one needs to drop the ball in the beginning of the slope?
Okay, so whether it's the beginning of the slope or whether it's the end of the slope or whether it's in the rough, distance control is the most critical in chipping. But like I said, if you use a shot that's going to give you more margin for error, you have a more margin for where you need to drop that ball, right? So one is, like I said, if you're using the baseline action, think about which trajectory is best for you. Is it the mid or is it the slightly higher one that will give you more margin for error? And the distance is controlled purely by the speed of the pivot again. So if I have an action like this and I feel that goes about 10 yards, I want the ball to go about 13 yards, 3 yards more. I use the same action. I just increase the speed of the pivot ever so slightly. And that comes from a lot of practice and feel. So a lot of your work has to be done on the practice green first, then maybe some experimentation on the course to understand what is the best way for you to be able to land that ball at 10 or 12 or 13 yards. So primarily speed of the pivot, right? So for the same swing, let's say from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, I can hit the ball maybe 6 different distances because I can vary my speed 6 different ways. So that's how good you should become, and you can choose which speed it is, straight away because you've practiced this so much.
Okay. Next question on chipping. While we look at turf interaction, can we make the mistake of getting too much underneath the ball, especially coming from the rough?
Yes, you have to judge the lie of the rough for sure, right? If the ball is sitting on top of the rough, you got to be smart then, right? Then you know that the club can go right under the ball. So at that point, you got to make sure that you raise your club enough so it hits the ball a little more cleaner. There's no doubt about that. So we do want to focus on the turf and club interaction, but at the same time, the first and most important thing as a player is you have to be able to understand what that lie is going to do. So the first thing you assess as a player when you reach your ball and you have that ball on in front of you on the course is the first thing you're doing is you're assessing the lie. What kind of a lie is it? Is it the rough? Is it sitting down? Is it sitting up? So once you do that and you give yourself different lies in practice, you know exactly what you need to do. So yes, club and turf interaction, while it's important, you need to also be able to assess the lie. And sometimes in very, very thick rough, fluffy rough, the ball can sit up almost about 3 inches above the surface of the ground. And then you've got to be careful because if your club slides under that, the ball's going to go nowhere.
Okay, next question. Can you show us your golf drill P3 to P8, please?
P3. Who asked this question?
This is being asked by Ashish Samant.
Okay. P3 to P8. That's actually a long game drill, I think. And, I think when I come in, we'll do another show with the long game. Right?
Okay, sure.
We will, yeah. So it's not a short game question as such.
Sure. I will move to the next one. How, this is a parting question, so we'll come back to this later.
Sure.
Yeah. So next question from Laksh Rampuria. What type of shot should I hit if my ball is behind the green in the rough and there is a huge tank, like the distance between the hole and the edge of the green is like 15 yards?
Okay, so I'm assuming you're looking at least a 25 to 30 yard carry, right? Again, coming back, if you learn this shot and the baseline, and all you got to do is then increase the amount of swing that you make. The height will be decided by you based on your address protocols. You want to play a high shot, you want to play a mid shot, that's really up to you, depending on how much green you have to work with. If you have less green to work with, you would want to open that club face a little bit more. But again, we need to come back to the same shot, right? You can that will go probably trajectory, or you could have the open club face in the front foot that will go much higher in trajectory. You can decide that. But I would say for most of you guys, 20, 25 yards away from the green, go with the baseline. And again, after a bit of practice, you'll know how much swing you need to take to get there. Just make sure, again, that under pressure, what happens is for most club golfers, the body stops working. Only the hands start working. And that's where everything goes wrong, whether it's contact or distance control. But just make sure that you have practiced the torso turn enough, right? And you're focusing on this action all the time. You should be fine.
Okay, next, there's one last question on chipping. After that, we'll move back to putting.
Okay.
What is a gap wedge?
A gap wedge is basically a wedge that's there to bridge the gap between your pitching and sand wedge. Because normally, let's say your pitching wedge is about, it varies now, but let's say it's about 46 degrees. And your sand wedge is about, let's say, 54 degrees. There's an 8-degree gap there. And you don't want an 8-degree gap because then let's say your sand wedge goes 100 yards and your gap wedge goes 120 yards, right? So your sand wedge goes 100 yards and your pitching wedge goes 140 yards. You want something in between that. So depending on what the loft of your pitching wedge is, you have to find that out first. So if it's 46 or 48, you then find a club in between that and your sand wedge. So let's say by default, you have a 46-degree gap wedge, 46-degree pitching wedge, and a 56-degree sand wedge. You've got a 10-degree gap there. So you would probably look at maybe a 50-degree gap wedge. But again, you can do some testing on a flight scope or somewhere to see what really helps you bridge the gap. You don't want a 20-yard gap between two clubs because that is where the problem comes. So the gap wedge is the club that we use between the pitching and the sand wedge.
Okay, so this now we are moving to the putting questions.
Okay.
Are there any drills for distance control?
Yes, I think one of my favorite ones is basically the ladder. So if I have a putt that's, let's say we start off with 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, whatever it is, right? Um, this is the simplest drill that you can have, right? You have basically put the ball in a ladder formation like that. You go to the first putt that's closest to the hole, and you hit the putt. Okay. Now you know you have a certain amount of backswing there. Go to the next putt and focus on increasing the amount of backswing so that you don't accelerate too much rather than hitting it harder. So just increase the amount of backswing a little bit, keep the speed the same, go to the next one again, keep going backwards like this all the way, and you can go from 5 feet away from the hole for your first ball all the way to 40 feet away if you have enough balls, right? You can just keep doing that. You'll start to see how you can actually improve your distance control as you go further back because it kind of gives the right message to your brain. This is the best one that I know of for a beginner golfer, a club golfer, or even a professional for that matter.
Okay. Next question. How do we see the grain in the green?
Again, the grain is, it's a bit of an art to see the grain, but to put it very simply, if you are looking down the putt and if you see the green or the grass is darker, you'll always see difference in shades in the green, darker, lighter, right? Some greens have no grain, but in India we have a lot of, in the subcontinent we have a lot of greens with a lot of grain. If it's darker, it means that the grain is towards you. Not, maybe not directly, but definitely in some way it's towards you. If it's lighter, the grain is going away from you, like that. So what is the problem with the grain going towards you? Is the putt will be slower. The grain going away from you, the putt will be faster. The complication comes when you have a left to right putt and you have figured out that the grain is right to left. The grain is actually going to push the ball more towards the left, so the ball will curve left on a left to right, less on a left to right putt, and similarly on a right to left putt. So that is an art that you can learn by actually going out onto the green. What you can also do to be sure which way the grain is you can take your putter and you can drag it along the green, and when it jumps the most, keep dragging it on different parts like this. You drag the putter more like this. Just drag it on the green, and when the putter starts to jump, you know that's actually the direction of the grain because it's going straight into the grain at that point.
Okay. Next question. How to prevent pushing and pulling putts?
Okay, coming back, I think again using the training aids, and nothing like good training, right? If you just basically set down your putting station, and I would say do two things: put this down here, and always have a putting gate over there. So you put the gate down maybe 1.5 feet away from your ball, like that. Okay, and all you got to do is keep trying to ensure that the ball goes straight through that. So I've got this track as a guide for my path, and I've got the gate as a checkpoint to see whether I'm starting the ball online or not. So I hit it. Okay, that one hit the left gate over there, so I know that my putter face is slightly closed at impact compared to that. So that gives me feedback. Let's do it again. Now I need to ensure my face stays square longer, so I'm going to focus on the face staying square longer, and that one went right through the gate. So now I know what the feel is to get my putter face exactly square at impact. For me, on that particular putt, I had to feel that my putter face was opening a little bit to actually bring it back to square. That's the beauty of having training aids and getting feedback on every putt. So if I try it again and again and again, I need to make sure that I understand the feeling of keeping that putter face square every time I hit the putt. You see that? It worked again. It worked again because I felt the same thing. As I hit the putt, I felt like my putter was opening slightly. But that's just my feeling to basically be square at impact. So this way, you can learn how to start the ball on line every time. and you'll obviously definitely make a lot more putts.
Okay. Next question. Why do we have to bend our elbow?
That's a very, very good question. In putting, definitely what you do want to do is you want to connect your arms to your torso, right? Because again, what you want to do is you want to have, I would say, an action where it's using more of the bigger muscles and less of the smaller muscles, right? So since I don't want to use any of my wrist action, I want to get this inward, so now I can use my torso and I can control it much better. If I'm very, very straight, there's a chance of a lot of this happening in my putting. So if I get it closer, just like the chipping, by the way, just like the chipping, right? If I stand closer like this with my elbows, obviously you don't want to stand too close to the ball, right? You want to be here, and I can just move my torso. If you do it up in this particular plane, you'll see much better, right? Being bent, I can use my torso much better to move the putter.
Okay. Next question from Suvir Kapoor, Kolkata. How does the thickness of the grip have an effect of our putting?
Suvir Kapoor, I hope you're doing fine in this wonderful time. Suvir, that's a good question. So what happens is as the grip goes wider, and you try this, right? You hold normal grip, and then let's say you can take something that's a lot bigger, and let's say I would say maybe a jhadu or something at home, and hold that. And what you'll see is that it's very difficult to move or rotate the wrists, right? So it actually reduces, a thicker grip reduces face rotation. So for a lot of people who have an issue with pronation and supination of the forearms, rotation of the wrist, etc., this is a very, very good thing to do. Just thicken the grip, right? And you start to see that it actually keeps your hands more stable through impact, right? So the problem, like I said, Suvir, for me, is that actually brings more weight this side of the putter. Have more weight this side. You lose the feel of the weight of the putter head, and to me, that affects your.
Sir, your voice is breaking again.
Putter head. Okay, let me just wait till it comes back. Is this?
Yeah, I think it's back.
Is it back? Okay.
Yeah.
So do I need to? How much of the last answer do I need to repeat?
I think you were showing the putting. I think you can repeat it fully, sir.
Yeah. So basically, the thicker grip, Suvir, basically helps to reduce the rotation on the putter. If I hold something very big, I can't rotate my wrists, right? If I hold something this big, I can't really rotate my wrists. So the thicker the grip, the less the chance I have of rotating the wrists like that. So the problem there, though, is that if I get a very thick grip, and what happens is it pushes the weight of the putter more towards the handle side, I lose the feeling of the weight of the putter head. And that can affect your distance control, because when you can't feel the weight of the putter head, it's very, very common that you see players hitting that putt a lot harder on the longer putts. They don't really trust the weight of the putter head. That's why you have to be a little careful. When you add weight over here, a thicker grip, you might want to consider adding more weight onto the putter head as well.
Okay, so we'll move to the next question asked by both Avikansh Basu and Sartasi Chandok. How vital is the grip in putting, and which grip should I stick to, or should you recommend?
How vital is the
putting grip, and which grip should you recommend, or which grip should I stick to?
So what we need to do with something like that, especially Avikansh, because you're a better player, is you need to understand also what's going on with your putter face. So for someone like you, we will only change a grip, okay, if basically if the basics are wrong, yes. And I think any putting grip is good as long as the putter face, right, is behaving properly. And what we need to check when you putt is what are the different actions that are happening in the putting that are affecting you. And based on that, we can suggest a better grip. Now, for example, if you like the reverse overlap grip, which is this one, but you have your hands turned too far inwards, that will basically encourage a lot of rotation of the putter face. So then I wouldn't really change your grip. I would just change how the grip is set up on the club. Now I would move you to more palm outward grip. Now you'll see I can't do too much of that, right? So similarly, if you find again that even though your grip is good, you have a lot of this rotation, I would then experiment with the claw grip, right? So I'd go with the claw grip to see if that reduces the face rotation. And again, all of this can be tested even without technology, just by using that little setup over there. That setup is so powerful that you can just hit putts, and if you can just train yourself and see what's going on, if you're mishitting a lot of shots, they're going off direction or offline very quickly, at that point you can consider a grip change. So grip is important, right? But what's more important is understanding what tendency that grip is causing for you. It's very easy to change a grip, but you might not fix the problem. So you're going to be always talk to an expert so that they're able to assess what that problem is, why, and is that particular grip causing that problem.
Okay, next question. How will you know what is the green speed? I think you already answered this. If you can just quickly touch this.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one, is there any way to control our distance and how to see how we need to hit to get into a hole?
Yeah, again, so I've covered this before again, but a lot of that is practice, guys. A lot of that is practice. So a lot of that is practice. So you have to go out on your putting green. Hopefully, a lot of you guys have access to a good putting green, but this can be done at home also. Is understanding. So I'm fairly confident with my distance control because I've got very good speed control of the putter head. So you can put me on any green in the world, and I can, within 2 or 3 putts, I can know how to hit the ball close from any distance. A lot of that is practice, and how you practice. So you know how much to hit the ball. Now, here's the other thing I must talk about is because a lot of your games are controlled by your caddies. I have heard caddies say, "Sir, itna maro." "Nahi sir, thoda aur." "Nahi sir, thoda kam." "Nahi sir, thoda aur." "Haan, itna maro." So actually, you're even dependent on a caddy to tell you how much backswing to take. And that is the number one killer for all our club golfers today on the putting green. There's too much reliance on the caddy. And for those of you junior golfers who are watching, right, if you really want to become good on the putting greens, stop asking your caddy. I know it's very difficult because all of you want to win every tournament, and that's actually a very, very dangerous thing. Try not to win tournaments, but to get better. Probably you'll have a better chance to become a professional. So be self-reliant on the greens, right? Use this feeling of longer backswing, and your distance control will be fine in no time.
Okay, next question. Is bending knee necessary while putting?
Yes, good question. Again, it's about posture. What does bending the knees do actually? It actually, what does it gets the pressure off your lumbar spine, right? So if I bend, I just get the pressure off my lumbar spine. It's not a really functional thing. It's basically for your health. So if you stand too straight, after a while you feel a lot of stress over here. So bending the knees just gets the stress off your lumbar spine, and then you can bend over much more comfortably. And my advice is, guys, whenever you guys putt, okay, make sure that after every putt that you hit, you stand up straight and walk away. And then take the next ball and get into position again, because this way you can putt for 1 or 2 hours without feeling any stress on the back. We have a lot of players who get into position, they'll hit one ball, they'll take the next ball there, they'll hit that ball, they'll take the next ball, and they won't move out of position. Not a very healthy thing for your spine.
Okay, next question from Julinka Raishuduri. How can I figure out the slope of the green?
Yeah, so as I said, there are various ways. I'm hoping to actually do an aim point session in Calcutta if I'm ever there. That's one way to do it. The other way, guys, is to just go out and practice seeing it, right? Practice seeing the slope if you can. Practice reading the green yourself, and you'll get it wrong many times. Don't be afraid to get it wrong. You have to get it wrong to become right. So when you see a left-right putt and you hit it right to left, it's okay, right? Because your instincts were wrong on that particular instance. But the more you try seeing the line by yourself, you'll automatically start to understand what that putt is doing. Stay away from asking other people or your caddy. You will get better.
Okay. Next question. How does aim point work when you have a double break putt?
For those of you who have aim point, who have done aim point, a double breaking putt is very, very simple, right? If this is the putt, okay, and it goes right to left, left to right there, we don't have to worry about that. All we got to do in aim point is take the read at the center point of that particular putt. And it works like magic. So the dominant slope will come in automatically. Take the read at the central point and trust it. That's how we do on double breaking putts. Now, once you've learned how to do aim point, you'll see the magic there.
Okay. What is a slope reader?
The slope reader is a digital device. It's like a little box like this that when you place it on the green or any surface, it gives you the tilt angle. So you can see that this is a right to left or left to right putt for me. Sorry, right to left putt for me. And I look at the reading, it says 4% or 5%. So I know that's a 5% slope. So I know exactly how much to read. And in aim point, we use the magnification and the arm bend to see. So if it's a 5% putt on, or it's a 2% putt on a 10 stimp green, we bend the arm according to the stimp, and we have 2% there, and we're able to see that. So that's what the green reader helps.
Okay. Next question from Jananya Dasani. It happens sometimes that the slope is from right to left, but it seems to be from left to right. What should we do in that case?
So if the slope is right to left, but the ball moves left to right, it's usually a grain issue, right? The grain is in the other direction, and it's stronger than the slope, right? So you need to be able to understand and see that. So what you need to do is always survey the putt from all directions. So if I come this side, I see, for example, the grain is dark. I come this side of the putt and I see the grain is light. I know the grain is going that way. When I come for the putt is right to left, but the grain is going that way. And the ball will actually move sometimes the other way, or it will move less from right to left. So that's again a skill you need to develop to be sure that, and so soon your eyes again will start to kind of see this.
Okay. Usually in clutch situations, we tend to hit the shorter putters hard. Any advices on that? Asked by Avikansh Basu again.
Avikansh, I think you need to do you need to start doing some yoga and relaxing and meditating so that when you have the short putts and the clutch, you're still hitting it with the right kind of rhythm. Again, on a more serious note, yes, you must be more relaxed because if you're not relaxed on those shorter putts and you have a doubt, that is going to cause some issues with your rhythm. So what you got to do again is, Avikansh, you got to do more performance practice and hit more putts. See, again, guys, you must understand, for you better players out there, that the more you train yourself and your mind, again, this applies to any level of golfer, club golfer, if you're an amateur golfer, if you're a professional golfer, the more you train the right way, the better you will get, the faster you'll get better. So Avikansh, I would suggest if you have an issue with shorter putts, do more performance-based practice drills with a lot of shorter putts, focusing on not worrying about the outcome, but absolutely killing the process. And you'll see how much better you putt.
Okay, next question from Kabir Mehta. Do we need to implement the same amount of pressure in both hands for putting grip, or is the left hand for support?
Again, that's a good question. Kabir, I think this is the Kabir Mehta from Bombay?
From Kolkata.
From Kolkata, okay. So Kabir, again, what you must think about, guy, is this the hands, the only purpose the hands serve, right, is to connect that putter head to you, right? So you can't say my left hand is tighter, my right hand is looser, or my right hand is tighter, my left hand is looser. You've got to have a good hold on the club with both the hands, right? And that's why you'll see sometimes, to avoid this, people go into a grip where there's very, very little difference between the right and the left hand. So don't go into that level of technical thought, right? Just understand that the putter grip, or the grip that you have, or the hands on the putter, are only serving to connect that putter head to your body. From there on, it's controlled by the torso a lot and the arms, right? We don't want the wrist action in there. It's controlled by the arms. So don't get too worried about that. Try to just feel nice. I would say get to your happy place in terms of your grip pressure. Don't separate right and left, because that's adding to the number of variables you have to think about in your swing, and you want to reduce those.
Okay. Last question. We have 2-3 more questions. Kindly elaborate proper swing with a lob wedge, giving analogy of a clock like 9, 3, 10, 2, 8, 4 with distances.
Right.
and the swing speed to get desired result for the toughest club to handle?
This is a question I can't answer super accurately because everybody's swing speeds, distances are different. I might use a 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock action with my arms that goes 50 yards. Someone else might use a 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock action with my arms, with their arms, and they go maybe 70 yards. So this is a tough question to answer. But what I would say is for you and yourself, right? For you and yourself, you've got to figure out your distances and how far you go and what your comfort levels are, right? That's what you need to figure out. So if you want to do, let's say, a 10 to 2 or a 9 to 3, right? You figure out how far your club goes rather than worrying, because I can't generalize here. How far should it go? What's the swing speed? That's very, very difficult to generalize. But I can go into more technical aspect in terms of the smash factor. If you have a flight scope that won't serve you any purpose. Try to find your own rhythm. Try to find your own different swings. Okay, and you should be all right. Don't worry about generalizing too much.
Okay, one last question I have. If you have a 200 square feet lawn, can we make it a place for putting? I think can.
Yes, of course. I think you definitely can. But what I would suggest if you're getting a putting surface done, get an artificial one. Don't get a regular grass one. It's very difficult to maintain. Right? I think you have a company in Calcutta that does this. They make greens. Again, I can share those details with the ProTouch team, and I'm sure ProTouch themselves will know, because you want something that's kind of zero maintenance and where you can actually maintain the speed of that particular green. The funny thing is about the artificial putting surfaces, you can actually change the speed whenever you want just by filling it up with a certain amount of silica dust. So I would suggest, yes, do a putting green, but get an artificial one done. It lasts forever. You won't have an issue with excessive rain or heat, or you don't worry about fertilizing and mowing it and all that stuff.
Okay, so we have covered all the questions, sir. Now we have got requests to do a session on drivers also and long game. So probably we'll try to do that in a later session.
On driver and long game, yeah, we can do it another time for sure. That's a completely different side. So what we can do is, thanks guys for being here. It was really good fun. I want to thank ProTouch, Indrjeet Balotia and his team for actually organizing this. It's a great idea. It's a lot of information, a lot of learning, I'm sure. Of course, nothing can really be learned until you actually try it. So, if you have a carpet at home or whatever, try the chipping action if you can. Try the pitching action. I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun with it, some new learning while you're indoors. And look forward to another session very soon. I look forward to seeing many of you at our academy out here, because nothing like an actual practical lesson when we actually have the student right in front of us. So great. Is there anything else I need to do, or are we done for the day?
No, so we're done. We'll be in touch, and thank you so much, sir, for your time. The session has continued for 2 hours or more. So thank you so much for your time.
Very good, very good. Happy to have all of you guys here. So if you have any questions, guys, going further about us, you can email us. It's on our website, tsgolfacademy.in. My email address is tarun@tsgolf.in. So if you have any further questions that you need addressed, we can always do that. It was good to have so many of you online. I think it was nice to see. I think we had almost 100 people, I think.
Yeah, 100 people on and off. Right now, okay. Some people have left. So we had about 87 to 90 people on and off. 900 people.
Fantastic.
Also, so there is a request to share the contact details of Vision. So if you can just share this with us.
Contact details of?
Vision for the equipments.
Okay, the Visio. Right. I will do that. I'll share it with you guys.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks to all the participants. We'll end the session over here. Once again, thank you, sir. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.